episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live. All the way live from Black Pearl Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. Before I get started on the political rant, I want to say happy 5-year anniversary to Trinity Haven. Trinity Haven, as you know, is the only place, residence in Indiana for LGBTQ plus youth who are at risk of homelessness. And I'm excited because I have been with Trinity Haven for quite a while now, for a while. And I'm really excited about the work that we do. I'm really excited in how we show up for people and show up for our community. I'm just really excited about who we are and how we represent young people and make sure that they have exactly what they need to be successful in life. And today is our 5th anniversary. It's our 5th birthday, and we're having a fundraiser. So listen, we reached our initial goal by 1 o'clock. I don't know if you've been watching my social media feed, but I have been posting. We reached our goal, but now we have another $5,000 match. So if you could go to the Trinity Haven social media page, we have another $5,000 match. We give up a raise up to $5,000. We have a match for another $5,000 that would give us $10,000. This is a nonprofit organization that is looking out to take care of our young people. Okay, that's what we are doing. We are taking care of young people. All right, I got a rant. Fox 59 reports the Carmel Clay School Board is weighing whether or not to put another referendum on November's ballot. They say they need to cover a $120 million gap in state funding. School board member Jennifer Cashin said there would be no one left unharmed if that funding gap isn't filled. An annual average of $15 million less a year is certainly going to have a huge adverse impact on the education here in the district, said Dr. Thomas Ostrich, the district superintendent. The possible referendum comes after the state passed SCA1. The property tax legislation will decrease the amount of money the school district will get over the next 8 years. The math has changed. The math is different due to SCA1. We are not going to receive the funds that we would have received previously. Under SCA1, the average homeowner will see a tax credit of up to $300, but it's leaving many school districts searching for ways to lessen the impact. In a doomsday example put forth by Roger McMichael, the district's associate superintendent, they would have to lay off 10 to 11% of their staff. It would hit every department, including teachers, bus drivers, and custodians. $15 million a year in the education world is a huge impact. So what numbers of teachers that might be, what numbers of custodians, what numbers of administrators, they don't know, right? The last time Carmel voters approved an education referendum was in 2023. Now, Governor Braun said previously that he would work with school districts as they deal with the funding shortage. We will work with them because I've been clear, school districts have to be healthy local government. They are going to need to see what they can do to get back the kind of rhythm. I'm sorry, let me read this again. They're going to need to see what they can do to get back to the kind of rhythm they were on pre-COVID. Guys, here's the deal. They made a mess of this. They made a mess of municipal funding with SEA1. And the reason why I was reading to you about Carmel Clay and the Carmel schools is because that is one of the wealthiest counties in our state. That's one of the wealthiest counties in our state. And their school systems are having to put another referendum. Mind you, I need y'all to understand, money, the school board money, school money, comes from property taxes. And if you have one of the wealthiest counties with some of the highest property taxes, and they are saying that they have a $15 million a year shortfall, so what's happening in counties where they don't have a lot of property tax dollars? What's going to happen to them? They may not be able to put a referendum on the ballot to raise property taxes. What happens to those schools? This governor has made a mess of things. Truly made a mess of things, made it harder for public schools. You know the whole goal. You saw Michael Beckwith go after Fisher's band students because they were in uniform. talking about take the voucher money and go to private schools. Bro, there ain't enough private schools. That just ain't enough. But why would you want to defund public education like that? Do you hate people? And this is happening all over the state. They don't want you, obviously they don't want your kids to have a quality education. Obviously they don't want teachers to be paid. Obviously they don't want you to have bus drivers. Obviously they don't want you to have custodians. Oh wait, I know what they want you to have though. They want you to get a chaplain. They want you to get a chaplain in your schools. And you know they're not looking at, a Muslim chaplain. So guys, it's time that we wake up and deal with the issues that are in front of us, because this is what's happening. But more importantly, not even more importantly, equally as important, the Supreme Court on Wednesday kicked yet another leg out from under the Voting Rights Act, the landmark 1965 civil rights law that Chief Justice John Roberts' court has repeatedly undermined over the years. Wednesday's opinion, written by Justice Alito, with the dissent from the court's 3 liberals, will make it, much harder for voters of color to challenge redistricting plans that allegedly dilute the political power of minority communities. The ruling will bring about major changes to political representation at all levels of government in future elections, starting in earnest in 2028. Many states will either choose to make a change to legislative boundaries or be forced by courts to redraw districts that currently guarantee the ability of minority voters to elect candidates of their choice. State legislatures controlled by Republicans could opt to eliminate a slew of Democrat-held seats, particularly across the South, in an effort to cement the GOP's hold on the U.S. House. However, the decision's impact on the 2026 midterm elections could be limited, even the practical and legal hurdles to redrawing legislative plans at this point in the cycle. But AP reports the Louisiana governor has suspended its congressional primaries today as early voting is about to get underway, while pressure mounted on Republican officials in other states to also redraw their U.S. House maps in light of a Supreme Court ruling that significantly weakened the Voting Rights Act. So, I wish my privilege would allow me to focus on one issue that can impact, that is one issue. I don't care what it is. I wish my privilege could say I could only focus on Medicare for all. I wish I could only focus on Gaza. I wish I could only focus on trans rights. I can't focus on just one issue. Because while some of us are focused on one issue, they are literally stripping my ability to have representation away from me. And y'all don't even care. Y'all not speaking up. Y'all not saying nothing. I know Republicans don't care. They never wanted black folks to be voting and having representation unless we tokens and we carry their water for them. There's black Republicans now on the ticket, and I don't understand. How could you be down with a party that literally is trying to strip your right to vote or strip your right to have fair representation? How could you rock with them? I'm angry about this because I think about the Montgomery bus boycott. I think about the freedom rides. I think about the 3 civil rights workers who were killed because they were trying to register people to vote to make sure that black folks had the power of the vote. I think about all the hard work that went into getting the 1965 Voting Rights Act passed. And John Roberts ain't never cared. He's been stripping this thing down ever since Obergefell. They've been stripping it. So while we were celebrating our ability to get married as gay people, they was taking black people's votes away. This is what's happening, y'all. Do you care that people who look like me actually get a chance to cast a vote and have representation for us? Do you care? I have to ask because I can't tell. I can't tell that you care. I can't tell that you are as fired up about making sure that I have the ability to vote and have representation as you are about some of these other issues. How come this isn't your single issue? How come this is not your single issue? Making sure that every Black and brown and other minority communities have the right to have representation at all levels of government. Why don't y'all care about that? Why are y'all angry? I ain't seen no posts from y'all about this. Only from Black people. I've only seen it from Black people. In my state, I've seen it from white folks in other states, but I haven't seen it from many white folks in my state. And I don't see every post. So if I missed it, tag me on it so I can go read it and I can highlight who my real allies are. Because I need to know. Do y'all care? If our representation is stripped away, do y'all care? I ask that earnestly because while we sitting around talking about who's taking corporate money and who ain't, it don't matter if you don't win. You can't stop this madness if you don't win. So you need to play the game the way the game needs to be played so we can win. And then you can hold your moral high ground when you get there. I'm so frustrated right now because we fought hard for these rights. Rights that we should have been given. We shouldn't even have to fight for them. We shouldn't even have to fight for them. But this is what we got. That's my rant. Democrats, are you looking for an affordable digital content creation solution? Then look no further than Black Pearl IT Solutions and Black Pearl Studios. Indiana's own Dana Black is providing many of the communication wraparound services any Democratic organization needs. No matter the size of the budget, Indiana's own and Black Pearl Studios have you covered. Just scan the QR code or visit www.blackpearl-its.com. You know what? It just hit me. That QR code don't work anymore because I got a dot card. I got to fix that ad.
Oh, okay.
So listen, guys, I know I sounded fired up and I am fired up. I'm angry. I'm ticked off because I can't tell that people are fighting for us and I need y'all to fight for us. But I'm going to calm down now because now I have a guest and I want to make sure that we are pouring all of our positive energy into our guest. Y'all give it up, running in Senate District 19, Timothy Murphy. Timothy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dana. I'm very glad to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. I got to ask you, was there anything in my rant that you wanted to comment on?
Goodness, I feel there's so much there. One thing I would say, two things, actually both connected. The person who's currently serving as a Republican in Senate District 19 was very much involved in the property tax change. That's Travis Holdman. So you can thank or blame him for all those challenges that municipalities of various resources are going through. And then as far as the Voting Rights Act, that really was the last it was the last effective plank of the Voting Rights Act that the Supreme Court hadn't removed, which is now effectively unenforceable. And so there's so many, I really think there's so many problems with that there's a connection between the policies that we can't get through and the weakness of our representative democracy. And I can talk more about that later, but Absolutely. This is part and parcel of a long process of undermining representative democracy in our state and country.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I love, you never know who's listening to the show. And Senator J.D. Ford, who is running for Congress in the 5th District, just heard just a little bit of my rant and sent me a screenshot of what he said about the Voting Rights Act, because he wanted me to know that he was an ally. That's what I'm talking about. I don't see every post, but he heard it and he shared it with me. And if I wasn't so blind, I would read it, but I can't see it. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to read it real quick from State Senator J.D. Ford. I sat in the rooms where these maps are drawn. I've served on elections. I've been a part of the redistricting process, and I can tell you this clearly. The lines on the map are never just lines. They decide who gets heard, who gets represented, and who gets left out. Today's Supreme Court decision weakens one of the most important tools we've had to protect voters from discrimination. It makes it harder to challenge maps that divide communities and dilute voices. And that should concern every one of us, no matter where we live or how we vote. Because I've seen that what happens when communities are carved up for political advantages, neighborhoods that share schools, churches, and history gets split apart. Voices get scattered, accountability disappears. I'm not going to keep reading, but J.D. Ford came through. He is my brother. We've been in this fight. So thank you for feeling my anger. First of all, I think he felt my anger and he wanted to let me know, baby, I got you. And that's love. That is love. So, you know what, let's get back to you because I want to make sure that we give you the proper due and the proper respect that you deserve. Tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Well, my name is Timothy Murphy. I'm running for State Senate District 19. I've lived in Indiana for the past 8 years. I'm originally from Kentucky, so
Okay.
neighboring state. So yeah, so people, I don't have much of an accent, but it comes out here and there, and people notice and go, okay, I hear it there, hear it there. But before I came to Indiana, I lived in Southern California for a little over a decade.
Oh, wow.
Doing work in social justice and faith-based advocacy on different justice issues and working in churches or in justice nonprofit areas. But I moved to Fort Wayne, which is part of District 19. Really just only 10% of Fort Wayne is in District 19. It's mainly rural counties to the south of Fort Wayne, but a little bit of Allen County. But I serve as a pastor at a progressive congregation in Fort Wayne. I've done that for the past 8 years. And so every week we talk about the kind of world we want to see that is one of justice and inclusion and compassion, where no one's left out or left behind, no one's exploited or marginalized. And that's kind of the dream of the world we want to see on earth as is in heaven, we might say. And it's just frustrating to see our state not only not do those types of things or move in those directions, but to do the opposite so often. But yeah, I've been a resident for 8 years in Fort Wayne, and so it's District 19, and I'm happy to share more about my personal journey and story as helpful or appropriate.
Absolutely. So, you know, you've lived in a very different social climate. So I don't know what the word is, but, you know.
Cultural climates.
Yeah. I mean, Southern California and Kentucky and Indiana, bro. That is very unique. Talk about, as a young person, when did you think that you said you're a pastor? When were you called to be a faith leader?
I would say it's a twofold kind of journey, or a twofold piece of things that influence me. So I grew up in more liberal churches and so forth in Kentucky, and was involved throughout my youth. And but it was really in college when I started thinking more seriously about that, about ministry, particularly ministries of social justice, which I was most passionate about. I feel that while I have a lot of advantages based off my socioeconomics and gender and race and orientation, growing up in school, I was heavily bullied. And so on a macro level, I might be privileged, but on a micro day-to-day level, it didn't feel like that because I was getting, beat up and marginalized and picked on. And so I found that experience of being bullied, you kind of go one of two ways. You either go the Steve Miller approach of I'm never going to let anyone hurt me again, and I'm going to step all over if I have to, or I don't want this to happen to anyone. I know what this feels like, and I want to have no one be bullied or mistreated. So that was a piece of it, of like that sense of empathy for others. And the other big piece, I think, was in college when I had cancer. And so I'm a cancer survivor, 24 years. And it was a big process of surgeries and chemo. And I think in $2,002, if we didn't have health insurance, thank goodness we did. But if it didn't, it would have been like $250,000 for those treatments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what it would be in 2026 dollars.
Right.
So I think having health insurance was
It's going to cost you that much just to drive there.
Right now, yes. Right now, yes, absolutely. But I always had the sense that being sick, it wasn't a test, it wasn't a punishment, it wasn't anything like that. Cancer happens, people get sick,
Mm-hmm.
but the question is, what are you going to do with the time that you have? Are you going to, you know what it means to go through things like this? How can you be supportive of others? How can you help others who are hurting? Because you know what that feels like. And so those are kind of foundational experiences for me in terms of kind of my concern and well-being for others. And then it's just this process of, in college and seminary, and the experiences I had working in different settings and meeting folks, being a chaplain at a HIV/AIDS clinic, or other types of ministries within seminary, that I felt called to ministries of justice in some way, shape, or form. And so all the work I've done, both in congregations or in nonprofit work, has had a social justice element to it. And I can share more about those if you...
Can I just tell you something? Like, I'm so grateful today that you are my guest today. We had never met before, I don't think. Have we met before? I didn't think so.
I don't believe so, no.
A lot of times when I ask people, I find out who's running because I don't play favorites. If you respond to the email, I put you on. And your story is incredibly similar to mine as a young person. I was also the kid that was bullied. Right. I was the ugly kid in school. Like, I was the kid that got teased just relentlessly. I mean, my goodness, you can't be this complexion and have the last name Black and not get teased about that and everything in between. But I got to tell you, you are so right in that either you succumb to the bitterness and the hurt and the pain, and you decide to lash out at other people, or you try to fight like the Dickens to make sure that other folks, right, don't feel what you felt. Brother, I'm telling you now, I have not heard anyone else tell my story like you just told my story.
Oh, wow.
So, you just told my story, and it's your experience, your life. I know it is, and I wanted to share that because you never know. When I do these turn lefts, I never know. I don't always know who the folks are, what they're going to bring to the table. And brother, you just touched me right then and there. You actually calmed me down. I mean, like, you really just did your thing. But I imagine that being someone who went to seminary school, I imagine someone who leans on their faith, you have a tendency to sometimes, like, you know what? Let me back up and pray about this for a minute. Right.
I'd be glad to have time of prayer with you, but maybe
no, not right now. I'm just saying,
exactly. Not right now. It's probably not the moment for that. I'm gonna keep that up in my heart, and thank you for sharing that and sharing a little bit about yourself just then, because I didn't know that, obviously. Yeah,
like, I mean, but you're my second pastor on this year, Pastor Green, who's got a contested race for the state senate. We could actually be sending 2 Democratic pastors to our state house, especially in a time when the other side of the aisle literally tries to take hostage faith. How do you feel about that when you see and I'm going to call them what they are, the white Christian nationalists, right? Which I think is a very different thing than what you're talking about, love and compassion. How does that make you feel when you see folks behaving in that way?
I lament it. It's incredibly frustrating. When I was in LA, I served in a role as the executive director of a group called Progressive Christians Uniting, and its focus was around trying to end racialized mass incarceration in California and address issues of climate change. And so I've been doing this work for well over a decade, almost 2 decades, and it's still, like, almost all the oxygen in the room is always towards evangelical, fundamentalist, and now Christian nationalist forms of Christianity, which that's just what kind of gets picked up in the media, and they're much a larger platform. And so, people find my congregation, they go, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
We've been here a long time.
Yeah.
We're here and we're doing the work. And so it's, I can't speak on behalf of the Christian Nationalists. In so many ways, we're almost different religions in terms of like what we value and what we prioritize and how we understand the kind of world and people we're supposed to be. The name Christian is almost the only thing that's in common.
Wow, thank you. That's and I love that. That was an awesome answer. So I imagine then, as you've been in Kentucky, grew up in Kentucky, moved out to California, now in Indiana, that social justice work, I imagine is what got you to decide to run for office. Was there one specific thing, or was there a host of things? Tell us why you decided to put your name on the ballot.
There was one initial thing that motivated me above all others, and it actually was this piece about this connection on all the policies that we want to see and the weakness of our democratic systems. And it was when redistricting happened after the 2020 census, they changed how the Allen County, which is in Fort Wayne's and Allen County, was already divided in 3 different Senate districts, gerrymandered, with no Democratic representation. And so after the redistricting in 21, they said, hey, let's make it 4 districts. And so the part of Allen County I'm in, which is a little more progressive an area, was attached to a very conservative district, District 19. And so in the 2022 election, when I came to vote, I had one option. I could write Travis Holdman, or I could leave it blank. And I said, nuh-uh. Someone's going to run. I don't know who. If it has got to be me, it's going to be me. But we are going to give people an option. They have a right to be able to choose something other than to leave it blank. And so that was the initial kind of fire, saying, if we're going to have a democracy, we have to have options and choices in that. And as I did the research, I found that that district had been uncontested, utterly uncontested, meaning the only candidate is the incumbent since 2010.
That's unacceptable.
16 years of no options at all. And so I was fed up with that. And so that was the initial fire that made me want to run. There's a lot of other things I care about, but that was honestly the first thing that made me say, look, we got to have a democracy. We got to have options to choose from.
I get that. I'm telling you, you were telling my story. I'm not going to go into it because Turn Left listeners has already heard that story from me. But yeah, that's why
I need to hear it. I need to go back and hear that one.
Listen, we'll talk about it offline. But and I think I love that because one of the things that we hear from candidates or people that we want to run for office, they have a fear. They are like, I don't want to, put myself out there. I don't want to put my family out there. I don't want to put my job out there. And those are real issues. I'm not dissing it. How did you work through that?
Well, I mean, I talked with my wife for a while about this, and so we had a good bit since I had some time to think about it, and so I've been thinking for a while, and I talked with her, and we prayed about it, and she agreed if this was something that I felt I need to do, that I should. I did also talk to the leadership of the congregation just about like boundaries and how I wouldn't bring the campaign into that work or talk about the campaign from the pulpit or any sort of things that it'd just be inappropriate and unethical. And so got their blessing, and then I decided, okay, I'm gonna do this. And in some ways, I'll say it was easier to say yes, given the insurmountability of the mountain that needs to be, like the seeming insurmountability of the mountain to climb, in that the district, if you look at like the 2024 voting pattern of who voted for the president and so forth, it's about 75, 25, 75% Republican, 25% Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
So to win, I would need a 50-point swing,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot.
It's
let's just
a lot.
say that's a lot. That's a lot. The campaign slogan is "Let's make the impossible possible." So that would be one piece of that. But it made it easier for me to say, look, this is first and foremost a message campaign of what kind of values do we want to see in our state, what is not happening, and I felt very comfortable leaning into that kind of campaign with my other obligations and time, and so that really kind of solidified me deciding to run.
I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. And the only reason why I know what's going to happen is because it happened to me. So there hadn't been a candidate in the district that I ran in for a few cycles. And it was a plus 20, 25 seat R, right? I ran the race. I got the highest vote total of any Democrat who ran against the Speaker of the House at that point, highest percentage. And then the best part was that there was a woman and a woman of color to run in every election after I ran. And we had been closing the gap every 2 years up until redistricting. So trust, know, and believe somebody is watching you right now and is like, okay, I'm gonna support Timothy right now. But, you know, if things don't work out, I'm gonna run. And I'm telling you, they're watching you. Okay. Yeah. See, I'm telling you.
I agree that the problems where we got into are way bigger than one campaign cycle. And so I think it'd be weirdly presumptuous to say in one campaign cycle, we're going to fix everything. That it's a these problems are decades in the making. The solutions are going to take
even longer.
They're going to take as long or longer sometimes, depending, you know.
I love that you're being realistic. Like you're not pie in the sky. You're like, listen, we want to make sure that people have a choice. And I love that. Thank you.
I mean, honestly, if I had my way, the solution I would have for this redistricting and gerrymandering would be not just independent commissions, it would be proportional representation. So the percent of the vote you get is the percent of the seats you have. So
interesting.
If we can get, so for example, in Indiana, right now there's 50 Senate seats and 40 of them are Republican, 10 are Democrats. So it's an 80% Republican, 20% Democrats. We are not an 80-20 state.
Nope.
But the Senate says we are based off how the districts are chopped up. If we were proportional, then it might be something like 57-43. Democrats get a little over 40% of the vote statewide. They get 43% of the seats, or something like that. This would also benefit, you know, conservatives in liberal states, for example, like Massachusetts, that they're underrepresented as well. But I think a more representative system is more representative. And also then the district lines don't actually matter anymore because it's the percent of the vote you get.
I like that. Well, I can guarantee you the supermajority in our state house ain't going for that because they just put it wasn't even a thing, and they put it in a bill to outlaw ranked choice voting. Like
ranked choice is great when you've got one seat that's like a governor or a senator where it's got to eventually be one person. And ranked choice is wonderful. And instead of even exploring it, they just made it illegal before even trying, which is
like, I mean, duh. Why? Anyway, they
don't believe in representative democracy.
No.
I think that's the ultimate answer there.
No. Indiana's own Dana Black, turn left. I'm talking to Timothy Murphy. Y'all click this link. Click his donate link. Become a $5, $10 recurring donor. I'm going to make sure that when I put the live show up, I make sure that I put his link up. Right now, I've got the turn left link up. But donate to his campaign. Click that link because we want to give him the best chance at success in November. So, you know, we just talked about representation and how with that supermajority, we're not being represented in the way that we deserve to be. I think about the conversation I had with my last week's guest and these data centers and how, and it's not just the data. First of all, they're literally trying to put, I think, damn near 7 data centers in Marion County alone. I need somebody to make sure, and somebody explain to me how that is physically, feasibly, economically viable to have that many data centers in one county. Oh, the most populous county, one with the most amount of people in it. I'm sorry, that was another rant. Sorry. Talk about it's getting ridiculous. Are they just trying to destroy my city? I don't know. Talk about, when you think about, I know data centers is the big deal. Let's get to it. What are you hearing in your district, and what are people saying they want you to fight for when you win the election?
People have been talking about data centers. I was in Blackford County last night, and that's a very rural county with not a lot of economic opportunities, but they were very concerned about data centers and how the data center might provide some jobs in the short term, but the companies are trying to build them are not looking out for the interests of any county that they want to put them in. It's to maximize energy for AI, and the purpose is to then eventually maximize to take away the jobs of people that generative AI can then replace, because that's the only way these companies can make the money they've invested in all this work. And so if data centers were democratically run with and owned and operated by the communities in which they're in, that's a different conversation. But that would also be true for a lot of different industries. Yes. That is not the case. I mean, economic democracy is also part of democracy, and data centers, I think, are part of a process of essentially expanding the wealth and income and power gap in our state and in our country. So that's one thing. People are also concerned about the property tax changes and funding to schools. People are concerned about the lack of healthcare options, and in some of the places in my district, there are counties where there's no hospital to give birth anymore. Like, it's just closed down completely. And so the opportunities you have in life should not be based on where you're born or where you were raised. If we actually want genuine equal opportunity, then where you grew up should have no bearing on the outcomes of the odds of you succeeding in life. And that's not at all how we have things set up right now. And we're only exacerbating that, of well-resourced places having more opportunities and those on the margins being further and further left behind. And I'd find that infuriating.
I do believe, sir, that Dan Cannon's going to be mad about this. And Dan Cannon knows who he is. I think I have found my new gubernatorial running mate. I'm telling you, brother, you are speaking my language. Where have you been my whole life? Where have you been?
In California, now Fort Wayne. I don't make it down to Indy all that much. That must be it.
And can I tell you what makes it so beautiful? It's obvious that your politics is based on people and making sure that people have what they need. Like, every day I wake up trying to figure out how to elect more Democrats who are going to write good policies that improve lives. That is like a saying that I say everywhere. And I have a feeling that you have that same notion and have that same empathy. And you are one of the reasons I tell people all the time, some of my more sensitive white brothers and sisters who be acting like Democratic Party don't want white boys and white guys in our big tent, which is crazy, right? That's not true. You're a prime example of why we need it. Here we are, a white pastor and the gay black loudmouth, the lesbian, literally echoing talking points, but it will hit different in different communities when it comes from you versus it coming from me.
It's not fair that that's the way it is, but I've recognized that. I've found it helpful to, white privilege shouldn't exist, but if it exists, I'm going to use it to dismantle it, if that makes sense.
And see, I'm okay with it because here's the thing. Now, I'm not okay with white supremacy and all of that. But what I'm saying is, I understand that people come from different lived experiences and everybody ain't gonna be cool with everybody. I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. I just need somebody to get my message out there. Like, I need this message to get there. And however someone's going to receive it, then that's how I need it to be received. It don't have to be me. And that's the point that I'm making. Like, yeah, sure. I mean, I would love to be able to go in, some all male places and they go, oh, Dana, you're a chick. You're welcome. Some places just ain't going to be like that, right? We all tribalize under one umbrella or another. But when we all have a message of unity and love and people who are receiving it can receive it better from you than they can. Hey, Timothy, go out there and talk to the people. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's how I see it anyway.
I keep wanting to say amen to what you're saying. But.
Oh, shoot, if I'm getting the pastor to say amen, I'm doing all right tonight. Listen, we talked about the supermajority, and, it's going to take a lot for us to end that. But if you were to win your election, talk about your leadership style and how you would work across the aisle.
Yes, well, I feel that I would probably be necessary to work across the aisle. Let's say that I do win. We make the impossible possible. We turn things 50 points, and I win. If I was the only one to flip a seat, then it would be 39-11. So still not going to be a governing majority, for example, and hopefully it'd be more Democrats would win. So that would mean that to have any influence at all in legislation, would have to be in consultation with Republicans who are willing to listen or consider a conversation. And so while I have really clear goals of what I want to see, I'm open to how we get there. And so if a Republican had a good idea on how to expand let's say parental leave. Maybe there's someone who's more conservative, but who also believes in having that as an option. I also affirm that for maybe different reasons, and I'd be willing to work with someone who has a different foundation for why they care about something, but we want to have maybe an alliance of convenience on this issue or on this topic. There also might be more conservatives who are up in arms about data centers, and so there might be some cross partisanship on issues like that. So you have to look there, and it's possible to listen to people, to hear their concerns, helping them feel heard, even when it's another elected official, can go a long way to building trust, even when we don't disagree on an issue, which can then allow for other possibilities. Well, okay, we can't work together on this, but maybe we can see some movement here, or maybe could sand the edges off otherwise bad legislation that Republicans were planning to push through. So I like collaboration, but I'm very grounded in the values that I believe in and care about and centered in. And so I think that collaboration without rootedness can just lead to
chaos
or something of convenience, and you don't really believe it. You're just trying to get power, or you think it looks good to do it, and a sense of purity that I can't work with anyone unless they agree with me on everything. That's a party of one. Exactly. I mean, no one agrees with me on everything. We're resonating, but if we went long enough, I'm sure we'd find something that we're like, well, I don't see it the same way. Well, now it's just us individually again. So you got to have both. You got to be rooted in what you believe in, and be able to collaborate with others to listen, help them feel heard. Active listening skills. It takes some emotional labor and energy, but that goes a long way to help someone feel heard. And then you can maybe push them and encourage them to shift some more. It's a possibility. That's kind of would be my method. I would think.
I love that. I love that. And you know what? And sometimes it ain't even a party of one, because you will change your mind.
Yeah, exactly. I've been wrong on a lot of different things over my life. Goodness.
And luckily I have people that love me to let me know when I'm wrong. Right. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. That's the best thing in life, is when you've made a mistake and
I can't always hear it in the moment, or, but I think about it while I'm sleeping that night. And then the next morning I'm going, okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Or sometimes it takes years, depending on, people can be stubborn for a while. I can be stubborn too. And so, I've had conversations with my mom on topics where we've had to have a conversation for like 10 years, and then we finally get somewhere. And so, good. There's issues that we don't have 10 years to wait for the conversation, but in some of those relationships, time and trust matter.
Absolutely. And I feel that 100%. Every candidate has like a top 3 list of priorities when they win their election. Tell us what your 3 top priorities are once you get elected and you're in the State House.
Well, I would say the most helpful thing I think would be for our state would be allowing citizen ballot initiatives.
Ooh, you want a constitutional amendment?
Yes. So currently, we can have ballot initiatives only for things that the legislature decides we can have, but that's not, so it's like a topic they don't want to touch, and so then they'll let people decide. But what we really need is what like Missouri and Ohio, other also more conservative states have, where if there's a popular majority that wants something and you get enough signatures, then you can have a ballot initiative over and above what the legislature would want. And so we could raise the minimum wage. I know there's a majority of Hoosiers that want a minimum wage above $7.25 an hour. Oh, I know there is.
Yes,
absolutely. It would pass.
And you can't say it, but I can say it. I know that there's a whole lot of people that want to pass cannabis. Okay, go ahead. They want to legalize cannabis. So you
legalize cannabis. Have a far less restrictive access to abortion. I mean, those are majority positions in our state. They are. And the only reason they're not even being considered is because we don't have a ballot initiative process, because our representatives are so warped and unrepresentative of the will of the people.
Yep, they do not care.
That would be the most important thing. It would be very hard to do, because currently you have to get the very people who don't have it, who don't allow it, you have to get them to agree to do it.
In 2 sessions.
Right. So that would be the most important piece, I think, in terms of having a healthier democracy in our state. Other issues has to do with affordability of affordable childcare. We do not have children. Got a nieces and nephew and love them, but I believe it's so important to have affordable childcare in our state. It is too expensive for individual households, and it doesn't pay enough to workers, and it's essentially a market failure. Like, the market cannot meet that demand in a way that works. And so those are the exact type of things where government's role can be to step in and make that happen. I think every county, there should be affordable $10 a day per kid in every county. And if that's not available in the market, the state needs to step in and make that happen.
And the state just went the opposite direction.
Absolutely. So we're not even maintaining what we have. We're making it worse. And cutting our support. And so that gives me such frustration. And we can talk about hope maybe a little bit later, but how to maintain hope in situations where things aren't getting as good as fast as we want them to, and not even holding steady, but just getting worse. Because
they passed the bill that the FSSA cut the funding. Child care centers all across the state closed down. I have a dear friend, family member. She had to close hers down, right? And now there's less centers for the same amount of kids. Like, and then they want to say, oh, we're going to write $200 million. You make a mess, and these people can't come. They made it worse.
I don't know why people are so fixated on having bad solutions to these problems. It might be a type of market fundamentalism where anything that isn't a free market is just inherently wrong, and can't even conceive that there are things that we can collectively do more efficiently together than that there are market failures. And just even that as a possibility, I think is people struggle with. A third thing I'd want to focus on is changing our tax system. We had that property tax change, which didn't is hurting a lot of municipalities. I don't know. I'll give a California example. This is not property tax. This is the state income tax. I lived in California. Everyone knows California is a quote unquote high tax state. Mm-hmm. As I've said to others, my taxes, my state income tax doubled, if not tripled, when I moved from California to Indiana.
Wait, what?
The taxes I pay, the state income taxes I pay, almost tripled when I moved from California to Indiana. So you go, how is that possible?
Yes.
Indiana's a low tax state. But what the reason is, Indiana has a flat income tax. Regardless of the percent you make of your job, your income, you pay the same 3.1% income. So you make, we could do I won't do the numbers, but it's 3% and change. But in California, it was a progressive income tax, the same as the federal income tax. So if you make not a lot of money, you pay a lower percentage. And as you make more money, you pay a higher and higher percentage. So while California collects a higher percentage of taxes, and taxes at a relatively high rate overall, for most people, if you make under $150,000 a year, you would pay far less under California's system than you do in Indiana.
Wow. I did not know
they tripled.
that.
They tripled. I mean, that just did. And my income didn't radically change from California to Indiana. It's just the tax rate went from like effectively 1% to 3%. And so it tripled.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of ways we could make changes in a progressive way. I've talked about this with farming communities. A lot of them struggle with the property taxes. We could have a graduated property tax for farmers based off small farms, 50 acres, 100 acres, something like that, pay a lower percentage rate. And someone who's got 1,000 acres or 5,000 acres pays a higher percentage rate. We could do something like that as opposed to a flat rate all around. Mm-hmm. We could go with I don't know if you've ever gotten a speeding ticket or a traffic fine.
Unfortunately.
But the way we do that is it's a flat number. It's $150 or $200 or whatever it is for the fine that you commit or that you're charged with. But in other places, those tickets are based off your income. So they have the same effect for your behavior. Because you paying $100 is not the same as Bill Gates in Indiana paying $100.
Right. It's pocket change. It's coins.
Exactly. So in theory, someone, making a couple $1,000,000 a year, have a traffic fine, maybe it costs $30,000 because that's enough for them to go, ouch, I need to stop doing that.
That is a very good idea. See, we need some of y'all liberals from California to come out here and bring some good ideas. Because those are, first of all, telling the truth, right? Because I've never lived in California. I visited, but I don't pay taxes there. So sure. if you only hear that California has high taxes and you don't understand how the tax rate works, you're not getting all of the information to make sound decisions. And so you just drop knowledge on people today. Because there's a lot of us here who've never lived anywhere else. I've traveled, I've visited, but I've never lived anywhere else. And it changes things. So to summarize, ballot initiatives, childcare access, and changing taxes. Those would be three things. Because those are really big concrete things. They're not like surface, skimming over the top. Those are like, if we're gonna make some real changes, let's make some real changes. I like that. So you mentioned
we've got big challenges. We gotta address. You can't nibble around the edges to deal with big problems.
You can't. So let you mentioned your book to me a little earlier today. Please, because at this point, like, I know my rant was heated and it still took me a little while to get my emotions under check. Talk to us about your book and finding hope when this hope seems lost.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a pastor, as an activist, even a theologian, I've written a few books, and one of them was for a general audience called "Sustaining Hope: How to Keep Going When You Want to Give Up." Mm-hmm. And I wrote that in, around 2017. It came out in 2019, okay, and is lamentably, still needed today. A lot of people are feeling a need for hope, and others have talked about this, but it's a real clear distinction between hope and optimism. Mm. Optimism is this idea of things little by little getting better and kind of looking on the bright side and seeing where things, are improving. And hope really isn't about that. Hope is about believing that things can and should be different despite the evidence, that there actually may not be any evidence that things are getting better. In fact, just as we said this week with the Voting Rights Act, voting rights is clearly worse than it was 2 days ago, yeah, and arguably worse than it was 40 years ago.
Yes. So
how do we maintain hope in a dream of a better world, a more just world? And it has to be in spite of the evidence, that in spite of that evidence, that things are not getting better and will likely get worse. And if you look at the trajectory, they probably will get worse. It can and should be different. Mm-hmm. And that it's worth working for that world, even if there's no evidence that our efforts will bear fruit in any immediate future. That's actually how I'm also able to run in a 75-25 district, is because I believe in that. Mm-hmm. That there's no evidence, I would say, that that a miracle would happen in that regard, but I believe that we deserve better. And so the way we make that world is by living into it one step at a time, even if there's no proof that we'll be successful, and that we don't need that proof for it to be worth doing with others.
So you want to go on tour together?
Sure.
I think we could make our rounds around Indiana and possibly inspire a few folks to look beyond their fears, look beyond their concerns, and step forward and be the light that we need them to be. Right?
Absolutely.
You are being the light that many need to see, and I want to thank you for, you already do all the work, right? You talked about criminal justice, you talked about justice reform and economic justice. You've talked about all the things, right? You are already doing the work, but you're going to say, hey, I need to take that street activism, that street politics, right? And make it into legislative politics. Right. And I appreciate you for that. Number two, you have a calmness about you, like you've managed to work your way to calming Dana down. I don't know how you did it, but you did it. But there's power in that, right? I'm fiery. There also needs to be the balance. Well, we are literally yin and yang, like for real, but not really. Like we are just like we're like piano keys. We're going to make beautiful music together.
Yeah. I will say that I can be fiery too. Okay. It just, it depends on the context.
I appreciate, and that's why I'll never get elected, because it don't matter the context. I just be fiery.
All right.
But listen,
one note, but it's a good one.
Exactly. Right. And I bring the funk. So I'm excited about your run, and you're going to be the second person I'm going to say this to this season. I want to come up and help you knock doors, or help you volunteer in some kind of way. I We'll figure out a weekend. I do a lot of traveling for work, but we'll figure out, even if I'm just phone banking. And if you don't, if you need a good phone banking tool, you should reach out to me, because I know this company that has these field tools, and I know the person that does all the demos. Wink, wink. It's me. And we just launched it where there's no license fee, so you should just talk to me. But if we can do some phone banking or something like that to help you out, y'all, I'm gonna encourage you all to find Tim Murphy. Matter of fact, Timothy. First of all, do you like Timothy? Tim, how should people address you? Timothy.
I generally go with Timothy, but I'll answer.
Thank you. No. We're gonna go by what you want, and that's Timothy, right? So Timothy, tell the people where they can find you.
They can find me on my website, murphyfor19.com. They can also find me on Facebook. You just look up Timothy Murphy, State Senate, District 19. It'll be right there. It's also a link from both the Facebook has a link to the website, and the website has the link to Facebook. They can also email me, murphyfor19@gmail.com. I'm not a big social media person, so I don't have an Instagram or I'm on TikTok. I actually don't really have a smartphone because that's just not my style. So I do what I can with what I've got. But
see, there we go. I knew you said it. We talk long enough, then we're gonna disagree. How you not gonna have a smartphone?
That's a longer conversation.
I'm teasing. Yeah. It was just a matter. It came full circle when you said we talk long enough, we'll find something that we disagree.
There it is. Yeah.
Do you have any volunteer opportunities coming up or events?
We will have we'll have door knocking soon. Okay. It has to do with the smartphone. I have to be trained in how to use the minivan app. The county party wants me to know how to use that before I'm knocking on doors, because it has to do with updating the system and so forth. And so that I can knock on doors, but if I'm not updating the system, in their minds it doesn't count. So I need to be trained in that. So as soon as that happens, because since I don't have a primary contestant or opponent, I've been doing other activities and events and so forth. I will be I know I'll be at the Decatur Pride Festival in June, okay. but we'll be doing door knocking soon after the primary ends.
All right. And do you have any fundraising events that people need to know about?
I would love to have more fundraising events.
Okay. See, I love that. Okay. Then you need to talk to me about your digital fundraising. So I'll make sure you have my work email so that we can talk about that. Timothy Murphy, candidate for Senate District 19. It has been an absolute pleasure to make your acquaintance today. I am so glad that we got a chance to talk. My life is so much better because I met you today, and I'm not BSing. Y'all know I'll talk too much to BS. But hang on, don't go anywhere. Guys, did we not just meet like the sweetest candidate in a long time? Like, are you not just moved by, maybe it's because we were like in lockstep on a lot of different things. That could be, I don't even know why my lighting is like this today. It could be because we were on lockstep on a lot of things, but I'm telling you, that young man has got it right. He's got it right. He has it that he cares about people. He's empathetic about people. And there's a way for us to serve and care about people. So please consider donating to his campaign. Please consider volunteering for his campaign, because he's, like he said, he's in a 75-25 district. So he's going to need all the help he can get. But that don't mean we can't do it. Because I believe in my heart that I think Republicans are overplaying themselves. I think they're overplaying themselves, and they're gonna find out that the people ain't really about that life that they thought that they were about. You can't just take people, you can't just shoot people in the head in the streets. You can't just grab elderly people out in the freezing cold in their skivvies. You can't just keep gutting our voting rights. You can't just start endless wars and not tell us why. gas prices are going through the roof. I believe that they have overplayed their hand because they know they don't have any policies worth running on. So they might as well restrict who can actually cast a ballot. That's it. So, y'all, find your candidate. Find the person that you believe in. Find someone that you can get behind and help them win. Because just being a keyboard warrior is not going to be enough anymore. It never was anyway. Get out, help some people, fundraise for some people, do the thing. Use that energy for them fast 150 words per minute or whatever it is, and go outside and talk to people in your communities. Or if you're not a social butterfly, could you bake some cookies for the volunteers, or hand out water, or, see what the party needs as far as clean up, set up, tear down. There's plenty of stuff to do so that we show up for each other during this election cycle, because they are literally trying to take our ability to cast a vote away. Yo, that's Turn Left. I'm Indiana's own Dana Black. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll holler at you next time. Peace. Turn Left is the property of Black Pearl IT Solutions. Executive producer, Indiana's own Dana Black. Music by Dorian and 22 from Pixabay.